Good evening, everyone. Today, I'm very excited that I'm going to be talking to you about financial planning. I'm sure, once again, that it's an area that we're all familiar with. At least we try at the beginning of every year to think about our finances before we even start going into it. So, a familiar area, but I'm going to change it slightly. I'm not going to talk about budgets and projections as we usually do. And believe you me, I'm a trained accountant. So that is my comfort zone. But I thought that I would be talking about something that has helped me, something that I've found to have made a difference to me personally, even as I plan my finances. The power of thinking. They say you need to control your thinking because your thinking will control your way of life. The Bible says it this way: as a man thinks in his heart, so is he. We are where we are now because of our belief system. At the end of the year, we'll be wherever it is that we end up because of our belief system. If we come up with a plan, or even if we don't come up with one, at the end of 5 years, we'll be wherever it is that we end up because of our belief system. Now, beliefs come from thoughts. So when we control our thought life, we control our beliefs, and if we control that, then we control the outcomes that we experience in our lives relating to our finances. I'll give you an example. If you look at the continent of Africa, for example, population 1.4 billion, a young median age 18.8 years, rich in so many resources: diamonds, gold, great elaborant. We've got freshwater bodies, we've got agriculture, we've got good forestry, and like anything that you can think of, any kind of resource that can bring you wealth, it is there in Africa. On the other hand, you can also consider the kind of information that is available out there, the negative part of the information, if I can say so. You look at the inflation, it's going crazy in most of the countries. Zimbabwe last year was at 173%. Malawi currently is at 34%. Some like Ghana went for 45%. It went to 45% last year. So the inflation is going crazy in most of the countries. You look at the devaluation. Most of the countries last year on the continent experienced a major devaluation of their currency against the US dollar. All these have an impact on the economy. They have an impact on our finances. Now, when you personally, wherever it is that you are, when you get all this information that I've just given you, what picture comes to your mind concerning your future, concerning your finances? How does this information guide you to come up with a plan for your life, or a projection to say, this is where I want to be at the end of the year, at the end of 5 years, at the end of 10 years? However you interpret this information is based on the belief system that you have. So for someone, they may go, when you look at this economy, what do we need to do? With this inflation being so high, IMF is saying that the projected growth, global growth, is going to be at 2.9% for 2024. If I'm going to make any projection, then my projection should be within a range of maybe 5% or 10% in terms of increase. Someone will say, if you look at the inflation now, the way it is, I need to cut all my expenses. I can't afford this, I can't afford this. It makes sense. I can't afford this, so this is how I need to do my plan. So wherever your focus will go will depend on how you think, what you believe, what you perceive the situation to be. Someone else at the same time may be saying, wow, this is the rate of inflation in Africa or in this particular country, but they also have gold, they also have diamonds. Is this what is happening to the currency? This is my opportunity to pick up assets from companies that maybe were not ready to handle this transition, this change, or what has resulted from the result of these changes. So it all depends on where you're looking at things from, your perception, which is colored by your belief system. So we look at all the opportunities. Some may find opportunities, some can't see any opportunities at all. Whatever it is that you see will determine the direction that you're going to take. So the thought life is what determines the belief system that we have. And our thoughts are guided, or they accumulate from the words that we speak to ourselves. If I say to myself, this year, I'm going to increase my income base so that I can manage all these other commitments that I have, immediately my brain goes to work. It starts looking for a way, a means to do what I've just told it. However, if I say there's no way that anybody can succeed in this environment, immediately my brain shuts down and there's no opportunity, there's no way, there's no idea that comes to us to say this is the way that we can proceed, this is the way that we can come out of the situation. So we are in control of the ideas that come to our mind. We are in control of the future that we have. We are in control of whatever it is that we perceive through the power of our words, which influence our thoughts, which when repeated, they become a belief system that determine the kind of life that we have. So beliefs, perception, and the life that we have in this world. When you look at words, I've said that the beliefs come from thoughts. They are formed from the thoughts that we have, the thoughts that we repeat. So when you look at the thoughts, where do the thoughts come from? The thoughts come from the words that we speak. Now, when we talk about words or what we say, the words they create pictures when you speak. If I say black cat, everybody has come up with a picture of a cat. Or if I say a dog, we've come up with so many different shapes of dogs, so many different breeds of dogs, depending on our experience. So when you say a word, it creates a picture. The more we clarify the word, the picture becomes even more clear. The clearer the picture, we can even attach emotion to it. If somebody once got burnt, for example, like maybe you got burnt on your hand some time back, maybe years back, and you remember the pain that you went through. If somebody comes to you and says, or somebody calls you and say, I just had an emergency. I bent my hand. What comes to your mind? Immediately you go, as if you have been bent as well. But it's not the actual experience, but your remembrance of the event, the feelings that you went through, the experience that you went through. So sometimes when you're reacting to things, when you're coming up with the actions that we do, they may not necessarily be based on truth or facts, but it's just our perception of what we think that thing that is happening now means at this moment, at this time. So thoughts accumulate and become a belief system. Our words, when we speak, they give clear pictures and they bring an emotion. The more clear the words are, the more clear the picture is. The more we repeat, the emotion comes with it. When it comes to that point, it becomes so clear, it becomes so solid that it forms our belief system. So how do we control our thoughts, or how do we build our beliefs from our thoughts? When you look at the word of God, where it talks about our lives, where it talks about our tongues being the pen of a ready writer, it says that we can, essentially what it means is we can write our future using our tongues. The way we speak can determine the quality of the life that we have. It can determine the picture of the life that we live in. So when we take that and bring it down to finances, who has been speaking words in your life? Because for the words, it doesn't matter who's been speaking. It can be me. It's more authoritative. It's my own word. The more I speak to myself, I could be saying, I can't do this. I mean, this is too hard. I've tried doing this before. It hasn't worked before. I can't do this. It's impossible to do this. Nobody has ever been able to do this. Or only this kind of people can do this. The more I speak that kind of word, I'm creating a belief system in me that will make sure that I fail. It will not create a way for me to do. But as soon as I change and say, I believe it is possible in this year, in this environment to succeed. I believe that it is possible for me to increase my income base in this year and do well, despite the circumstances that are there. Then I start creating a more positive outcome, a more positive outlook. And my mind goes to work to try and find a way for me to reach that goal that I've set for myself. So the more we speak, the more we are writing on our hearts, the more we're writing on our minds, the more we're creating our future. When you go a step further and we start writing it down, we solidify those thoughts even more. Because when we speak, sometimes we can forget about it. Maybe 5 minutes later, the same thing that you spoke a few minutes ago, you've forgotten. But if you write it down, it becomes even more solid. And it means that you can even go back to it when you forget. So it becomes part of who you are. It becomes even more solid and something that you can really touch and rely on. So you can determine your thoughts by the words that we speak to ourselves, We can solidify it even further by writing it down, using your time as a pen of a ready writer to come up with the future that you want for yourselves. So we need to take control of our thoughts. I've said it, there's so many voices that come to us. My way, my own voice, my past experience, what I've seen somebody go through, what the voice of authority over our lives has been saying. It can be those that we call to be expert. They'll give us their view of what they think this economy is going to be like, or what this year is going to be like. Like now, there are already predictions of drought. I've already talked about the lower growth rate that the IMF has predetermined, and then the inflation rates that are expected to be higher for some of the countries. When you look at that, it's what has come out of the words that have been spoken. They are facts based on the expert's opinion. So it's up to me to say, with this information, what am I going to do with it? Am I going to use it to create the future that I want? Or am I going to use it to, am I going to allow it to limit the kind of expectation that I have for myself for this year in terms of my finances? So the voice of authority, your own authority, the voice of those, your own words, the voice of those that we consider to be experts, and past experience. All those are voices speaking to us. They determine the kind of words that we speak to ourselves. And the more we speak, the more we hear, the more we write in that particular tone that we choose, the more we are defining the life that we're going to have, the more we are defining the direction that we're going to take. So what do we need to do? We need to take control of our own future. We need to take control of our own finances. And the way to do it is to control our thought life. Take ownership. It is your life. It is your finances. It is your future. Why should you leave it in somebody's hands? If you have a tool that you can use to determine the direction that your finances are going to take, why not use it? If it's as simple as changing your thought life, why not take advantage of it and try it? I have tried it, I have used it, and I've seen that it worked. Like last year, we've used it for a couple of years. Last year, and both me and my husband are accountants. So when I talk about the economic environment and all these factors that would affect or negatively affect the plans that we would make for a year, those are things that we took into account. But at the beginning of the year, last year, we determined that we were going to double our net worth. That was the dream that we had. That was the thought that we created. We talked about it. We wrote it down. We had all those things happen in this nation, things that happened all over. There was the war and the impact on all the nations. We had the cyclones, Cyclone Freddy, Cyclone Anna. We had the devaluation of a currency by almost 40%. But despite all of that, by the end of the year last year, we had doubled our net worth just as we had determined. How did we do it? Control your thought life. State the direction that you want to take. Be in charge of your life. Don't let anybody determine the direction that you're going to go or the extent to which you're going to reach your goals. You have the power. You have the control. It is all in your time. Would you determine your thoughts? Would you determine your beliefs? Would you determine your perception and the actions that you take and the opportunities that will become available to you as your eyes are open to the opportunities that you see around you? So thought life, beliefs, words, and solidifying the thoughts. When we say speak the thought to you, all we're saying is you need to get the brain to think the way that you want it to think. When you speak, it helps your brain to think in a more structured way because the brain gets so much data, so much fleeting data at any point in time. So when you choose to pause, speak a particular word. This year, I'm going to increase my income sources. The brain pauses and it takes that into account. Then you say, okay, this is my thought, this is my plan for this year. I'm going to write it down to solidify it further. So I sit down and I actually write, in this year, 2024, I'm going to increase my income base. And then I'll sit down to say, okay, what does an increased income base look for me? So I'll dream in color with no limits at that point. So whatever figure it is that you think would determine an increased income base is what you come up with. So I'll imagine having that amount of money. I'll imagine having that number of sources that I've determined. I can say maybe I'll increase it by 3 sources, 5 sources, whatever it is that I have determined. I'll dream in color. I'll enjoy the feeling. I'll dream and dream until that picture becomes so clear that I can feel it. After I've come up with the picture, then I'll go to the next step. Okay, this is the picture that I want. This is what the economy is telling me that this is what it looks like. But is there anybody in this world, in this environment, who has managed to succeed despite the odds that are against them? So now that becomes a knowledge issue. So there's a lot of information available online, or even if wherever it is in the countries that we're based in, that we can access. I'll try and find somebody who succeeded in an environment similar to mine. I'll get the information relating to how they succeeded. I'll study the things that they did. I'll make sure that I understand it. Once I've assimilated it, then I'll see it for myself. Is this something that I can replicate? Is it something that I can do? If it's something that I know that I can do, or if there are gaps that I see in the knowledge or in my skill base that I need to work on, I'll get that additional information to ensure that I can implement that plan that I've seen that that person did. I'll get the knowledge, I'll study it, I'll make sure that I've understood it clearly to the point where I can implement the knowledge that I've gained. Once I come to that point, the next thing is action. They say we are where we are either because we don't have enough knowledge relating to that area, or because we don't take the action that we need to complete the cycle. So I've got the information, I've studied it, I've understood it, I have seen how I can adapt it to my environment, I have seen how it can work. From my critiquing that idea, that thought, that plan, or whatever it is that that person implemented, I'll have come up with strategies to say, okay, this is how I'm going to make it operate in my environment. Once I do that, then the next step is I'll have to take action. What is the strategy that I came up with? What are the actions that I need to take to implement it? Once I start implementing it, I'll keep on doing it until I get it right. So I'll repeat the process. Start getting the results. I'll keep doing it and keep doing it until I hit a ceiling. When I get to the ceiling that I can't get through, I'll go to the next stage. I'll get the information that I need in order to cross over that ceiling, and then start implementing it again. So it goes in phases, it goes in stages, but at each point there's always knowledge, there's always action, and there's ownership. So I take control of my own future by taking control of my thought life. I take control of my thought life by being careful with the words that I speak to myself. I determine the future that I want. So I come up with words to describe the future that I want. In that way, I'm determining the thoughts that I'm going to have. I determine the thoughts that I'm going to have. I will have created a belief system. That belief, once it's solidified, whether it's true or not, I will act on it. When it comes to the point where it's become so vivid, so clear that it's a belief, whether it's a fact, whether it's true, whether it's a lie, I will act on it. The control point is the words. You start with the words, which you determine your thoughts. Your thoughts, once they're repeated over and over again, they'll become a belief. And that belief, once it solidifies, you act on it without even thinking about it. So take control of your future. Take control of your thought life. Take control of the words that you speak. What kind of a future are you seeing for yourself? What kind of a destiny are you seeing for yourself? Where do you see yourself? The Bible says, as far as you can see, God can deliver. God said this to Abraham, Genesis 13, when he said, you can look eastward, you can look westward, you can look south, north, whatever you can see, I can give it to you. In Ephesians 3:20, it actually says, God does exceeding abundantly above all that we can ever ask or think. So when you're a child of God, you actually have an advantage. There's a force at work in you, and a force working on your behalf to propel you and push you to the kind of future that you desire. It says, whatsoever is born of God overcomes the world. It overcomes the systems and arrangements of this world. So you determine, where do you want to go? God promises he can deliver more than you can dream. Are you prepared to do the work that is necessary to get there? Are you prepared to renew your mind to get it to be in line with that dream that you have? Are you prepared to stand firm to repeat the process until that becomes a belief? And then once it becomes a belief, it is automatic. You're going to live. You're going to walk in it. You're going to touch it because you went through the process of creating a belief system that determines the kind of future that you have decided that you want to have. So we have the control. Let's get the knowledge that we need. Let's take action. Let's make sure that we are in charge of our own future, in charge of our own finances. So let's see if we can look at this idea of increasing our income base. How can we explore it further from wherever we are, from whatever environment we're in, with whatever experience that we have? For you, take a moment. If you have a paper close by, take the paper and pen. Write for yourself, what would it look like if you increase your income base? So first, you start with the thought, I am going to increase my income base. I'm going to increase my sources of income. So write that thought down. This year, 2024, I'm going to increase my income bases. Okay. So we've written that thought down. So for you, what does an increased income look like? So that's what you state clearly. I'm going to increase my income base by so much. Whatever idea it is, whatever thought it is, you can write it down, because what's an increased income to me may be different from what you have in mind. So write that figure down. This year, I'm going to increase my income source by so much. I'm going to increase my income bases to 3, to 4, to 5, whatever it is that you think that can work for you. Now sit down and imagine, if your income had increased, or if your income is increased up to that level, what will it look like? Enjoy the moment. What will it feel like? Imagine you're at that point where your income has increased. Maybe you said 5 times, maybe you said 3 times, maybe you said you're going to increase your income by 100% of whatever it is that you're at now. So imagine that you have that money. Imagine that your income has increased to that level. What will it feel like? What will the moment be like when you get to that point? So internalize that feeling, that emotion that you're going to enjoy. From that step, you've written the plan. You've clarified by how much you think your income is going to increase. Start thinking. In your country, or maybe not from your country, do you know anyone who has managed to succeed in an environment that is similar to yours? In an environment where the inflation is going high, where our currencies are devaluing, where there are wars, in an environment where they're predicting droughts, where there may be any kind of disasters, whatever it is that the experts have predicted for your nation. Is there anyone that you can think of that has managed to succeed in that environment? Think through it. Does a name come to your mind? If it does, write that thought down. Then after the session, you're going to take the next step. You're going to get the knowledge that that person that you've written down, that you think that that person succeeded, what that person knows. You're going to get to know what he knows that took him from that situation to the next. Whatever it is that he implemented that moved him and caused him to operate at a totally different level from where you are. Once you get that knowledge, you're going to critique it. You're going to bring it down. You write it down again and you say, okay, this is what this person did. How can I apply it in my life? Is this something that I can replicate? Is this something that can work for me? Is there anything that I can change? How can I change it? How can I adapt it so that it works in my situation? Once you've determined that, then it's the next step. You review that plan that you have. Clarify it, fine-tune it until you come up with a strategy that you can implement. You have your strategy. You might come up with 2 or 3 strategies from the thought process, whatever thought process that you take through. Once you come up with those strategies, then the last thing is action. Don't let it just be a theoretical work. Don't just write it down and fill up your journals to say, this is what we planned, this is what I did. But actually take a step and do something about it. And as you're doing it, you're continuing to speak to yourself that this year you are increasing your income sources. Even as you're doing that, the moment you start speaking and repeating it, your reticular activating system gets activated. And then immediately your brain goes to work looking at opportunities to say, okay, she wants to increase the income basis. So what opportunities are there out there? So it comes up with ways, ideas of how you can increase your income sources. Those are the ideas, those are the thoughts that you write down. Those are the thoughts that you develop by getting knowledge about them. Those are the thoughts that you study, you thoroughly look at, and then you analyze, you critique them, and come up with your strategies. And the strategies that you implement would have arisen from the thought process that came from the first words that you spoke when you said, I am going to increase my income base this year by so much. Simple, but very, very critical. Once we master this art, the rest is very easy. As we are adjusting our expenses, trying to match with whatever environment we are fitting in now, as we are planning and controlling the direction that we're going to go, as we are looking at investments, because even in our case, once we said that we are going to double our net worth in this year, immediately thoughts, ideas, plans came to say, how are we going to do it? And then we had to analyze those thoughts further to say, okay, this is what the economy in our nation is like. This is what the inflation is like. And there's going to be a possible devaluation, because you could tell that there's going to be a devaluation. So what kind of assets can we buy? What kind of investments can we make that can keep value? So that in the event that the inflation continues to go up, in the event that there's a major devaluation, we do not lose value. So that was guided, that came from a thought, that came from knowledge, and that came from action. But it all started with the word. It all started with a thought, which when repeated, created a belief system. This is where I want to go. I will speak it into existence. I will let it predetermine my thoughts. I will make sure that it results in the future that I want. Take control of your future. Take control of your destiny. Be the kind of person that you want to be. Be in charge of your finances by controlling your thoughts. You can determine your destiny simply by taking charge of your thoughts, taking charge of your words, which will determine the actions that you take. And always remember, you were not born by chance. You were born by the will of God. And whatsoever is born of God overcomes this world. You have overcome the systems and arrangements of this world. Whatsoever you can dream, you have an added force. There's an added power. There's an added push compelling you towards your destiny, towards that desire, that dream that you have. Your God has already promised that whatsoever you dream, He can fulfill. He can do exceeding abundantly above all that you can ever ask or think. So why are you afraid to dream? Why are you afraid to desire? Why are you afraid to go wild when your God has challenged you that He can do even more? So take control of your finances. Take control of your thought life. Get the knowledge that you need. Determine your strategies for this year. And at the end of the year, I'll be looking forward to looking at the impact that this has had on your life and all the income sources that you've determined and have predicted for your life. God bless you.
I also found out habit number 3, successful people write their dreams and goals. And you've probably heard me tell the story of the professor at Virginia Tech who just walked up to random people and asked them, what are your goals for life? He said 80% said, I don't have any goals. 80%. 16% said, I have some goals, but I've never written them down. 3% said, I've written my goals at some point, but I don't know where they are. 1% said, I have goals, I've written them down, and I review them on a consistent basis. He said, do you know who the 1% were? Millionaires. Every one of them were millionaires. And this came from the Bible. God's the one who said in Habakkuk 2:2, write the vision, make it plain. Why? So you can run when you read it. Well, I discovered 97% of adult Americans are trying to live their lives without clear written goals. Jim Rohn said setting goals is a habit that altered his life forever. In fact, he said when he was struggling in life, he said he had pennies in his pocket, nothing in the bank. He was blaming everybody for where he was in life. And he said this wealthy man began to mentor him and change his habits. One day, the guy said to him, Jim, let me see your current list of goals. Let's go over them. He said, I think I can give you some ideas. Jim said, I don't have it. He said, is it out in the car or something? Go get it. Jim said, no, I don't have a list of goals at all. The wealthy man said, well, if you don't have a list of your goals, I bet I can guess your bank balance within a few $100s. which he did. And that got Jim's attention. He said, "You mean my bank balance would be bigger if I learned to set goals?" He said, "Drastically bigger." Within 5 years, Jim Rohn was a millionaire. Well, Mark Twain is the one who said, "I can teach anybody how to get what they want in life. Problem is, I can't find anybody who can tell me what they truly want." Well, I would hear things like that and think, I can do this. So I grabbed a journal and started writing my goals. And in the beginning, it was like clean the kitchen, clean the master bedroom, pay off the MasterCard, $4,000, save $1,000. But I began to check them off, which led to bigger goals like write a book, see my books at Barnes & Noble, speak at events with John Maxwell. When I started practicing what God said to do, write the vision, make it plain, you know what? My dreams started manifesting before my eyes. When the vision is clear, the results will appear, right? Okay, then I began to learn habit number 4, successful people are grateful. You've probably heard that if you complain, you will attract more to complain about. But if you're grateful, you will attract more to be grateful for, right? Well, when my life was falling apart, I had to stop looking at everything I had lost and look at what I had left, and start thanking God for what I had left. And I would walk around my kitchen at 11 o'clock at night with tears pouring down my face. This is when my husband and I were separated. I was miserable. And I would think, okay, be grateful. And I would lift my hands and think, okay, Lord, I thank you that I have a house. Lord, I thank you that I still have a job. Lord, thank you for that little redheaded girl sleeping in her bed. I prayed for that baby. Thank you, Lord. And I would feel the heaviness lift off of me every single time I would do that, and peace would come on me. Again, this was a principle I began during that season of life when my marriage was falling apart, had no money, no dreams, no ambition, but I was learning that praise is a weapon against Satan. Gratitude for what you do have is a weapon against the devil, and it's a key to walking right into the presence of God. I also discovered that if you want to stop progress in your life, use your mouth to complain. Nothing will delay your dreams more than complaining. You've probably heard Joyce Meyer say, "Complain and you'll remain." In fact, there was a businessman named David Horsiger who was asked about his key to success. He said, 18 years ago, my mentor asked me to make a 30-day commitment to stop complaining. Don't complain about the weather, the traffic, how tired you are, how hungry you are, how you slept last night. Don't complain about the line at the grocery store. You're hungry. Not one word of complaint out of your mouth for 30 days. He said it changed the whole trajectory of my life. He's now a best-selling author. His clients are the New York Yankees, Wells Fargo. He's very successful. Well, God is the one who gave us these success clues in His Word. He said, enter His gates with thanksgiving. So I started journaling my gratitude every morning, which there's a place for you, every single morning to journal what you're grateful for, to just make it a way of life, a habit. In fact, I found out that psychology researchers have stumbled upon this biblical secret to success. Listen to what they found. When you journal your gratitude, you sleep better, you have fewer symptoms of illness, you're happier, less anxiety and depression than those who, complain. It came from God's word. God said, in everything, give thanks. He said, be thankful and say so. Don't just think so. Say it, express it, write it. That's why I added this little section to your dream routine planner, so you just get into a habit of magnifying what God is doing in your life instead of focusing on what's not happening. So here's my challenge. Don't complain for 30 days and journal your gratitude for 30 days and watch what will happen. Now, the last habit I want to share real quick that will propel your life to a new level is this. If you want to know where your life is headed, listen to the words coming out of your mouth. Habit number 5, successful people make positive declarations. You may have heard me tell this story. It's a famous experiment about the power of words performed by Dr. Emoto using water over cooked rice. Now, Dr. Emoto used 3 different containers with 3 different labels for each one. He filled each container with cooked rice and then he labeled them. One was labeled, thank you. One was labeled, you're an idiot. And then the third one was just unlabeled. Every day for 30 days, a solid month, Dr. Emoto would speak to the container based on the label. He spoke pleasant, affirming words to the rice labeled thank you. He spoke harsh, demeaning words to the "you're an idiot" jar, and then to the third jar, he just ignored it altogether. After 30 days of consistent treatment, the thank you rice began to ferment, look appealing, and give off a strong, pleasant aroma. The "you're an idiot" rice turned mostly black and mushy, giving off a sour milk aroma, and then the neglected rice just began to rot and mold altogether. Isn't this crazy? Well, since then, scientists, college students, homeschoolers, they duplicated the experiment and got the same or similar results, proving how powerful your words are in producing the outcome in your life. Here's my point. Your words are carriers of life and death. If rice can be affected by positive and negative words as well as total neglect, how much more can your circumstances be dramatically affected by your words? So, I made a list of positive declarations that I would just make myself speak. I would walk around the kitchen declaring, I'm confident, I'm courageous, I'm qualified by God, I'm sensitive to God's voice, I attract God-inspired ideas that produce millions of dollars, I speak at the largest conferences in the world, I'm confident to speak on television, I'm an expert in the message God has given me to share. I would say my gift is making room for me and bringing me before great men and women. I remember the first time I was invited to do an interview on TBN. And before they went live, they're telling me where to sit. And they said, Terry, you sit right here in the expert chair. I thought, expert? What am I an expert in? And then it dawned on me, oh my goodness, I've been declaring I'm an expert in the message God has given me to share. I thought, it's happening. Well, if you want to know where your life is headed, listen to the words that are coming out of your mouth.